Hello and welcome to another episode of the djproject Criterion Collection. And here we're going to talk about Spine 105, The Lady Eve, directed by Preston Sturges, 1941. This is why I can say that there is such a thing as a good romantic comedy. Others, of course, are It Happened One Night, the Philadelphia Story, but nowadays romantic comedies have this reputation of being very bland, very formulaic, very generic, very uninteresting, and occasionally offensively stupid. Jokes that aren't really jokes, and really poor attempts at humor, and it's gotten to the point where you mention romantic comedy and people are like, ugh, and you just roll your eyes. But Lady Eve is an example of a good romantic comedy. In fact, a very good romantic comedy. This is one where it's really hard for me to talk about without giving most of the plot away, but basically this concerns this is the strange romance between a brewer's son who has a affinity for snakes and a card shark's daughter who is very wise in the ways of life, certainly has a lot more wisdom than he does, but nevertheless they fall in love with each other for entertaining reasons. It's not like with say All That Heaven Allows, where you're not really sure what the motivation of the relationship is. But here I think it comes through a little bit more. For the case of Charlie, also somewhat affectionately known as Hopsy, played by Henry Fonda, it's mostly I think it's inexperience that comes through, but also having a sense of knowing what he likes and knowing what he wants, and if he's able to see that in somebody and feel something for it, then he'll go for it. And I think for Jeans, played beautifully by Barbara Stanwyck, I think I think what he does for her is reminds her of that there are such things as ideals and so forth, and it's not all cynical and such, and people kind of gaming each other, and she's definitely a gamer. Not in the way that you think. Not in the way that gamers use now, but a different kind of gamer. Excuse me. This. I'm just going to have to say, just go see the film because it's very enjoyable. It's another demonstrate. Well, first off, what's memorable about Preston Sturges, and unfortunately I think this is the only film of his that I've seen thus far. I mean, I know he's done like Sullivan's Travels and a few others as well, but the thing that characterizes Preston Sturges is witty, razor-sharp dialogue. Dialogue that's full of subtext and lots of double meanings, not necessarily those kinds of double meanings, although there's a few of those, but sort of ones that feel like there's a bit of fourth wall commentary and a little wink and a nod to the audience, those kinds of subtext. It's very clever, it's very witty, but it's all delivered with it's delivered well, it's spoken well, and I think it's become almost a lost art form. That kind of that kind of dialogue. And as I think I've said in other instances, dialogue is often is demoted and put on a lower priority as far as craft, because the notion being that, you know, you're going to see a film, it's all about images. You know, who cares about the way people talk? Well, I think depending on your subject matter, it does matter, and I think in this case, because there is, you know, it's not only looking at this relationship, but it's also making its own commentary about who is who, and things are not always what they seem. And this is why I don't want to give too much of the plot away, because it does play on that, and I think it is one of those things where you just have to see it for yourself in order to get at it. And it's played wonderfully. It's written well, and it's directed well. And for a film that's, you know, I mentioned dialogue, and the dialogue certainly is there. It's certainly not lacking in anything visual. The visuals are just as entertaining as anything. In fact, there's one moment in particular that's very enjoyable, and that's because it is visual. And actually, it was something that wasn't planned. For those who haven't seen it, I'll just say that it involves another time when a proposal was made, or when a declaration of love is made, and it happens much later in the film, and I'll just leave it at that, and I'll leave you to. But I think for those who have seen it, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. It always makes me laugh, but it's just really without giving too much away, it comes down to, it's a very satisfying and enjoyable film. It's a very enjoyable screwball comedy film. It's very enjoyable as a romantic comedy. There's a lot of things that are done well. The dialogue is witty, and actually there's a nice spectrum of humor. There's, of course, witty dialogue, but it also has plenty of pratfalls. But pratfalls that are done well. It's not done stupidly. It's not done purely for its own sake. It's done very well. And interestingly, this is a lot of, I think all the pratfalls are, well, almost all the pratfalls are done by Henry Fonda. Yes, this is one of those few instances where Henry Fonda is known against type. The other time where he goes against type is in Once Upon a Time in the West, but here he's kind of he's the clumsy, naive, idealist, socially inexperienced, and in a lot of other ways inexperienced brewer's son who has a fondness for snakes. Gets tipped around by a card shark's daughter, and really it's just all around very enjoyable. And it's also a good demonstration that the best comedies are not just about the comedy. I mean, you want the laughs to be good laughs, you want the humorous moments to be humorous, but it also has a very moving moment in there as well, that you really feel the pain of that, and the pain of it is very sincere. It's almost as if you're on this comedic track, but then it takes a little step back, and it allows for this moment, and it does it really well. And I think that's a testament to what good writing does. Is not only does it set a tone, but it knows how to play the right tones. It knows when there's a balance, and you feel that it's right for the story, or that it's right for the characters. But it's not it's not done clumsily or arbitrarily. You don't get the sense that, oh, we got to have this because we need to have it. There's something very, very genuine about the whole thing. You know, even though it's also a contrived story. You know, there's I don't want to make it seem like it's realistic. It's not. It's certainly a constructed story with constructed characters. But it's in the writing and in the directing and in the performance where it feels, even though it is contrived, you do feel that there is a genuineness to it, and it comes off as certainly interesting, and even a little bit intriguing. So and so yeah, it's just really, really enjoyable. So again, if you want to see a example of a good romantic comedy, and a good screwball comedy, it's definitely a go-to film. You also see little echoes, or you see what will become echoes into other films. There's one shot very early on where it's this long tracking shot on the boat where everybody's commenting on the arrival of Hopsy on board. It's set up that before he's been on this expedition through the Amazon studying snakes, and now he's going to return back. He's going to return back home, and so he's picked up by this cruiser ship. And so on board this cruiser ship is all the passengers looking on, and it's just this continuing tracking shot where you see as the characters appear in frame, they have their one little line comment, and this shot would then later reappear in Rushmore. So there you go. And often Wes Anderson is compared to Preston Sturges. And I guess I'll leave this as my final thought. Again, I don't want to give too much away, but I definitely recommend you go check out this film, especially if you like classic Hollywood films, especially if you like screwball comedies, especially if you want to see a good romantic comedy. Definitely check this out. I guess my final thought is that I can also say that this is why, it's because of this film where I can say that as much as I like Chasing Amy, I can also say that Chasing Amy is also not that good compared to The Lady Eve. The similar issues are raised in The Lady Eve as in Chasing Amy. The notion of identity and things are not what they appear to be, and that you should love somebody on their own terms and love them for who they are, not what you think you love about them. And again, and it's all done with dialogue and comedy as well. But there's definitely more cleverness and slightly more sophistication in The Lady. Well, actually, to be fair to both films, Lady Eve works as a constructed comedy, and there is a wit and sophistication and a certain grace that's done in The Lady Eve, whereas in Chasing Amy, what has it going for it is a certain authenticity to the characters. This is not entirely playing to a particular formula. This is a story that is dictated by the characters, and so I guess in the sense it's comparing apples and oranges. So again, go see The Lady Eve. It's very enjoyable, especially if you like witty dialogue, if you like screwball comedies, if you want to see good romantic comedies, go check it out. So there you go. The Lady Eve. And until next time, take care.